Hi fellow YouTubers. I just installed the Aprilaire 500 whole house humidifier, and I wasn't happy with the other YouTube videos how-to installation that I saw, so I decided I'll see if I can show some things that might help to make it easier for people to install it. Right there is where I installed it. And one thing that wasn't clear is some people install it on the return air, some people install it on the supply air, and they didn't explain why you can do that. The reason you can do that is the filter on the inside of this where the water runs through. The air can move through that either way, it doesn't matter. And so I decided to install it on the return air because I have seen where sometimes it rusts with all the humidity coming through, and this way it's blowing the air out from the furnace, and first it goes through this ductwork. If you can see here, this 6-inch ductwork down into the return air, so the moisture is in this before it goes into the furnace, so there's not as much chance for rust and stuff. If you install it on the return air, the air would come out of the supply air and blow into the Aprilaire humidifier and then straight blow the water into the return air duct, which could rust that on the inside. So that's why I did it this way, and hopefully won't have as much chance of rust on the return air. So anyway, that's why you can install it on the supply air duct or on the return air duct. The other thing on the plumbing, most of them use the copper water line, which I don't know why, because this PVC water line is much easier to work with. But if you do use the PVC, I did not get the inserts with the Aprilaire. I have to buy these separate, and you have to put those in the end of the 1/4-inch PVC or it will leak. But it's a lot easier to work with than the copper. The other thing, the main thing, is the wiring. There's 2 wires that come out of the water supply. One is the hot wire and one is the common. So you need 24 volts on the hot wire, and the common is of course just the return wire. They do supply the 24 volt transformer, but you actually don't need it if you have a newer furnace. There might be older furnaces that don't supply 24 volt, but I know the newer ones do. So down here in the furnace, I can show flashlight in here where you can see. Okay. show that. Okay, there. It's kind of hard to see. This wire's in the way. As you can see, you have a C, which is a common wire. That's just a return wire, and that would be for the common to screw onto that. And then you have a G, which is the fan. The W is heat and Y is cool. The R is just your 24 volts. That R screw will supply you with 24 volts where you don't need the transformer that was sent with the unit. So the R will give you 24 volts, but you don't want to wire it to the R screw because then it would be running all the time. The 24 volts, when the heating kicks on, gives you the 24 volts at the W screw. Or when the fan kicks on, you got 24 volts at the G screw. So you can choose which one, and that's what I didn't see on my other YouTube videos. One of them just used the G screw, but they didn't even give you the option of the W screw. I like the W screw, which is heat, because if you wire it into the heat kicks on and your water starts trickling through the filter before the fan kicks in. Also, if you use the fan 24 volt, then if you want to run your fan all the time for some reason to circulate the air more, then your humidifier is going to be running all the time. So that's why I didn't want that. But you can use that if you're not running your fan all the time. You want it to kick in when the fan kicks in. But if you just want it to kick in when the heat kicks in, then wire it from the W screw. I also like that because when because water runs through the filter and you lose some water, and if you use the heat screw, the water shuts off a little bit before the fan shuts off, which uses up more of your water. You don't have as much waste. So anyway, that's how I wired it. Your one wire would go, your common wire would go to the C screw, and your hot wire would go to either the W screw if you want it to kick in when the heat kicks in, or the G screw if you want it to kick in when the fan kicks in. So, of course, there's also the humidifier thermostat that I put on there. You wanted that on your return air so it monitors your air as it's coming back into the furnace. And that is from your, when you wire, the wires run into the furnace, they come out of where I just showed you, and they go into that thermostat, and that's basically just a switch that connects the hot wire. So it tells it if it needs the humidifier to run or not. So it basically just switches on your water pump or switches it off if it doesn't need. the humidifier on. So basically that's about it. So I hope this helps a little more than what I found on YouTube. The other thing that I'm going to add is they always use the tin snips to cut out the holes for the humidifier and the thermostat, and makes it easier if you have a grinder. Just put a cutting blade on it and make sure you put on goggles because there's a lot of sparks. But if you use that, it's 100 times easier than trying to snip through with the tin snips, and much easier to cut yourself with tin snips. So that's about it. Thanks for watching.